Hey guys. Um, so I wanted to mention something. I was reading online about a man named Andrew Getty, who was an heir to the Getty oil fortune, J. Paul Getty, and it looks like that he used a lot of meth. The movie that he made, The Evil Within, I think relates to methamphetamine. And it got me thinking, so I just posted some information online about Tom Hanks being a pedophile, and I contacted a number of different agencies on my Twitter account. I connected, like PBS and Sony, and Donald Trump, real Donald Trump, and FLOTUS, his wife, FBI, and then Rita Wilson, which is Tom Hanks' wife. And it got me thinking, the meth and Tom Hanks. Several years ago, I was sentenced to mental health court. And I was forced into taking a guilty plea. It's a long story if you look at my other videos. I was arrested. The FBI in New Haven requested my arrest because I had been calling people in Newtown. And no one was killed in Newtown, Connecticut, at the Sandy Hook School. And the New Haven FBI requested my arrest. They said that I was mentally ill, and they contacted the Portland police. And I ended up spending 2 months in jail. I took a guilty plea to get out. I was abused by Deputy Rodney Schaefer, Lieutenant Penna, and the third deputy, whose name I don't remember, but I could pick him out in a police lineup. And I've said this before in other videos. Well, I took my guilty plea in front of Judge Leslie Roberts. I was very poorly represented by an attorney named Richard Morgan, who still practices law here in Portland. And then after taking the guilty plea with Judge Roberts, I was sentenced to mental health court with Judge Tom Ryan. And I had mentioned to Judge Tom Ryan, one day, because there were a lot of people that were using drugs, and I mentioned a drug called Ibogaine. It's a drug that's used in Mexico, and it can cure people of their drug addictions. I had spoken to a man lived on Staten Island many years ago. His name is Howard Lotsoff, and he had an addiction to heroin. And he was about 19 years old, and he describes how someone had given him some capsules of Ibogaine, which comes from a plant that grows in Africa. And after experiencing about 16 hours of some psychological effects of the medication, he no longer had a craving for heroin. Well, I had mentioned this to Judge Tom Ryan, and he told me in the mental health court with a bunch of other people, he said, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And then he wanted me to write an essay on the importance of following court orders. Tom Ryan did something very unusual to me. I've never had another man do this before. I was out in the hallway. We were both out in the hallway, myself and Judge Tom Ryan. There was about a 30-foot, maybe 30-foot distance between the two of us. And I had looked over at him, and he looked over at me, and I think he was wearing his robe, but I'm not sure. And he never lifted his hand up. He held it at his side, and he went like this with his fingers. So that was like at crotch length, and like wiggling his fingers like this. And I looked at him, and then looked away, and then I left. Left the building. I was all finished in the court. This happened out in the hallway. When I had a federal court case, I mentioned this to a woman named Janan Stoll, Janan Stoll is an assistant at the Federal Public Defender's Office. And I was in a meeting with Janan Stoll and Francesca Freccero, and we were discussing my interaction with judges and lawyers and things. We were kind of discussing my federal case with Judge Michael Mossman, and I told them what Judge Ryan did, how he wiggled his fingers like this and never lifted his arm up. And Janan said, "Oh, he was waving at you." And I said, "Well, that's an unusual place to wave to someone." I said, "That's where my penis is." And Janan didn't say anything. And I thought it was a very odd thing to do. I was a little concerned. I didn't mention anything to anyone, but I had heard that he coached children's basketball. And I didn't think it was a good idea for him to be around kids, but I didn't want to mention anything to anyone because he was a judge. But it got me thinking, since of Tom Hanks, since I was posting stuff online about him, I thought I would just mention it to you guys now.